Hey dog people, you know I love talking all things muzzle related. Well, I'm so excited to announce that I've partnered with Trust Your Dog, custom dog gear for you and your dog. Trust Your Dog muzzles are completely customizable for your needs and your unique dog. Muzzles are great for a variety of uses, such as allergies, requesting space from triggers, post-op site protection, and of course, bite prevention. Each Trust Your Dog muzzle is expertly fit and handmade, with the choice of bright colors and bling to break down the muzzle stigma. Trust Your Dog's mission is to give humans comfort in knowing their dog is safe, all by empowering humans to trust their dogs. Head on over to trustyourdog.com and use my code FREED10. That's FREED10 for 10% off. Use code FREED10 for 10% off your custom muzzle at trustyourdog.com. Welcome to Dog Training Bytes. The show where canine professionals share their key takeaways, big aha moments, and hardest lessons learned from working with dogs. I'm Madison, certified dog trainer and behavior consultant, and dogs are my life. Every day I get to coach guardians and other trainers into a deeper understanding of canine behavior. But let's face it, sometimes dog training really bites. And that's okay, because when it does, we learn a lot. This podcast is all about sharing the lessons learned from experience, because the stories of when it got tough or when we made a mistake, that's when we learn the lessons worth learning. And it's time we share those with the world. I'll be talking to dog trainers and other pet professionals about times that working with dogs, well, bit. Not literally. Maybe literally. What's most important here on this show, what did they walk away with? What did they learn? How did it shape their approach today? Welcome to Dog Training Bytes, the show where pet professionals share personal lessons that you won't find in any textbook. Today's guest is Kirsten Matthews, a certified dog trainer, canine life coach, and founder of the Canine Detective. Kay specializes in helping stressed and overwhelmed dog guardians cut through the chaos and reconnect with their dogs and themselves. Her coaching blends deep empathy, science-based methods, and real-life problem solving to support clients facing behavior challenges, burnout, or big life transitions. She offers one-on-one coaching virtually and is the host of the upcoming podcast, Dear Dog Fanatic, where she gives honest, supportive advice to dog lovers navigating the messier parts of pet parenthood. Hi, Kirsten. I am so excited to have you here today.
Thank you for having me on the pod. Honestly, I fangirled a little bit when I heard that I could come on because I've been consuming the episodes obsessively.
This is really special for me to have you on for a lot of different reasons. I'm very grateful for our friendship and being able to just watch your transformation over the last year and getting to watch you go through various evolutions over the last year and to now really, and I just got like chills all over, but to now see you really, I think, stepping into this just very resonant and expressive place where I feel things are really clicking for you. And it's just really been a beautiful thing to watch. And so I feel really grateful to even be able to be in your world and get to be a part of this.
That's so kind. You're getting me emotional before I even get into my very
Right
emotional
off the
story
start,
here.
I can't help it.
know.
I can't help it. I am a water sign.
No, but I've said this to you before where I have been very fortunate to have been mentored by a number of trainers in different ways. But I would say the trainer that has impacted maybe who I am as a trainer and the way I go about training the most has been yourself. So honestly, this is just such an honor.
And that means a lot to me because I think that it was clear to me very early on in us working together the many ways in which we are very similar. And I don't feel that with a lot of folks that I bump into in the online dog training space. So that's been really great for me to just feel just a coming home with that. So I'm really grateful for that. And I know this one because we've been in each other's world for a while now, but I know that the dog people out there are going to want to hear about your personal dogs because, oh my gosh, is it an awesome crew?
Right now, I have three. So I have a Silken Windhound named Velma. And for those who are immediately going to ask, what the heck is a Silken Windhound? So they are a purebred dog breed. They're registered, not yet with the AKC. They've been working on it, and we feel in the club that they'll get there in a few years. But they do have they're registered with a number of the certifying kennel clubs internationally. So There is a breed standard. They're not just breeding willy-nilly. And for visual, picture a small borzoi for those listening, or if you know what a whippet is, it's like a fluffy whippet,
A
but
floofy
not quite as
noodle, a floofy
muscular.
noodle dog.
Yes. So
Medium-sized floofy noodle dog.
perfect. Yeah. And mine's on the smaller side. So females can get between 30 and 40. Mine's 26.5 pounds. And it took me a year to get her to gain 1.5 pounds, much to my vet's dismay. My second is a French bulldog named Kronk. And my third is a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel named Lilo. They're all 3, 2, and 1 because I'm nuts.
And really, I think if there were infinite resources and nobody to tell you no, you'd probably continue with that pattern.
Probably, yeah. I've done some soul searching and I've listened to a lot of dog trainers I really look up to. And I think after these, I'm actually only going to have 2 at a time. That's also because I'm going to need to make a adjustment and only get airplane friendly dogs. My fiance's Irish, so we're going to be bouncing back and forth. But 2 to 3, I think, is my comfort zone because I am extra and put my dogs in swimming lessons. They go to sniff spots at least once a week. What else do I do with them? They run on treadmills. They do dogs.
It's a lot. It's
yeah.
literally like having 3 kids in different sports. And it's
No,
like,
pretty much.
I gotta get Kronk to T-ball, and Velma's at ballerina class right now.
Yeah, no, I just put out a reel yesterday being like, it's just such a spectrum. And I call myself a dog mom, and it's not the same as being a human mom. And there's no right or wrong way. And one thing I always do with new clients is I suss out, okay, what does their relationship with their dog look like? Because it's not always what my relationship with my dogs look like, and that's totally fine. I just want to know where people are at. But yeah, my fiance jokes, I'm basically like a step below human mom with the amount of things I do with our dogs.
Yeah, I get that. I absolutely get that. And like I said, it's just such a cool crew. And I feel like they've each really brought something like in a way of a lesson for you to be
Yes,
able to work
100%.
through. And also just really seem to mesh really well, which is really fortunate because that can be very challenging. I think anyone with a multi-dog household knows that it's just going to present its own challenges. And they seem to have really good and solid relationships amongst themselves.
Oh, 100%. And I don't know if we have time to get into it. So I'll give it a quick overview and you can wave your hands at me if I'm getting too far into this off topic and to stop. But I actually picked my dogs for each other. So I looked at what I needed and I view, and we'll get into this as lessons as I talk about my first dog, Frodo, because that's the story I really wanted to share today. But I learned a lot from him. And I believe that not only are you picking your dog for yourself, you're picking your dog for your household. So if you have a partner or kids, you have to keep them in mind. If you have other dogs, you need to keep them in mind because basically you're signing everybody up for a roommate and or partner for the next 10 to 15 years-ish. So you need to get along.
That made me think of there was this old sitcom that I used to watch as a child called Dharma and Greg. And Greg was like Mr. Button Up wearing a suit, and his girlfriend or wife was like Miss Hippy Dippy, and she had 2 dogs. And this is something that I always remember. If she had the one dog, I think his name was Stinky, and then she got Stinky a dog. And if she would walk her, he was like a big, fluffy, maybe even like a wolfhound. And then he had a little terrier, and he would hold the terrier's leash in his mouth, and she would hold the big dog's leash, and they would go for a walk. And she got her dog a dog, and that just made me think of that. Okay, so we do have quite a story today. I'm really excited to hear this story. I know high level. I know maybe some of the details, but I don't think that I know the full story. So this is definitely going to be a first time for me. So I'm really excited to hear this.
So I am going to talk to you today about my first dog, Frodo. And the backstory of Frodo and how we even got to Frodo was a little bit complicated. So I am, at the time of the story, a young professional. I'm in my early 20s and I've always wanted a dog. Important thing about me, I was that kid
a tale
that
as old as time.
Yeah.
Young woman out on her own for the first time.
Yes.
Young 20s. I want a dog.
Yes, yes. And I had been plotting forever. Okay, I was that kid, Nintendogs. Okay, so I was Nintendogs playing agility and discus with those Webkins, all the dogs. What else? Like I would have books. There was somehow books that you'd get at the Scholastic Book Fair that had the description of all these different dog breeds.
Dog breed 101.
Yeah, so I was that kid.
Me too. I knew we were the same.
So there's a few fundamental things about my life that I've always wanted, and very clear, like since the age of 5. And being a dog mom, owner, guardian, whatever term you want to use, was always one of them. And so early 20s, I had just spent 5 years in university. I had 1 year left to go because I was that crazy kid that went to business school and decided that I was going to take 3 languages and study sustainability as an environmental sciences at the same time. So I had a double degree and a minor in certifications, and I had a year
What
left.
languages did you study?
French, I'm Canadian, Spanish and German. I spent 6 months in Germany and I was preparing to do an exchange in Ecuador, and then that ended up falling through. But I had studied Spanish for a couple of years in preparation for that. My aunt's Peruvian as well. Good skill to have.
That's a great skill to have. I love that.
So it took a long time, but basically I was dreading going into my last year because COVID, obviously, during this time. So this is,
Also, I bet you were burnt out on education.
so I was that kid that always got straight A's, and I have ADHD and probably autism, for sure, anxiety and depression. So I hit quarter life crisis at 15 and muscled through high school.
Yep.
Only applied to one university because I didn't really want to go. I wanted to go to Australia because I have Australian citizenship because of my dad.
Where
And so
aren't you from?
their school system starts 6 months later. So I wanted to go to
Mhm.
Australia. So I only applied to one Canadian university, got in. I was like one of 300 that got in out of 3,000 that applied. And so I'm like, hey, I have to go.
Right, guess I gotta go now.
Yeah. So I went and I muscled through. I was heavily depressed and suicidal at the start and then muscled through for 5 years. Didn't
So
know I
burnout
had,
is probably putting it mildly.
yeah. So but at this time, I knew I had anxiety and depression. I did not know I had ADHD. So I'm going through university, and university is hard because in high school, I could read manga on my phone during science class and pass.
Yeah.
And I'd get A's because I can study and I can absorb the information and I can do well. But anything that required a length of time with something boring was hard. I fell asleep through every accounting class. I'm not joking. I'd be standing, I'd be pacing, I'd be sitting down on the floor every single class of accounting. I thankfully got the C plus or whatever, passed it, done. Anyway, long story. So super burnt out at this point. And I always wanted to get into tourism. So tourism was where I wanted to get into. I'm from BC. Adventure tourism is very big here. And I got an opportunity to go work in Whistler for an adventure tourism company. And at the
So
time,
cool.
I thought I was going to work towards being a climbing guide. So I thought I was going to get my certifications. I got an offer to go to a school for it in New Zealand, but then I got the job in Whistler. I was like, you know what? I'll stay in Whistler, go there because COVID and visas and all that jazz. So I'm working in Whistler. I'm living on my own after some bad roommate situations. I'm like, you know what? I can finally get a dog because it looks like even if I go back to school or not, I'm sticking around. I'm going to stay in BC, do this adventure tourism thing. So I'm now in a good time to get a dog.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was trying to figure out what kind of dog I should get. Now, I had seen a bunch of dachshunds around, which this seems random, but there was a few people around with dachshunds hiking in the forest at the time. And so I was like, maybe I want a dachshund. And I was looking up online, and they're like surprisingly quite agile for a small dog breed. And I could bring this dog with me to the office. I'd worked that all with the company. And so I started talking to rescues because that's the responsible thing to do, right? Is to go source your dog from a rescue. So, and at this point, while obsessed with dogs, I had only had Pomeranian mixes with my family. Okay. So no frame of reference in my personal life for anything other this small fluffy thing that's reactive to other dogs.
And not for nothing, a dachshund in and of itself is very different from that.
No, 100%, right? So to say, as much as I was obsessed with dogs, I did not have enough real world context of what dogs mean, because a lot of times even for the average pet person, unless you're like really into it, you get a dog.
You only know what you know.
Yeah, exactly. So talk to the rescue, and what I told them was, okay, I may be thinking a dachshund. I want something that will come hiking with me on the weekends. I live in Whistler. Something that will come with me to the office, and I live alone in a basement suite. I want this to be my companion. We'll do everything together. And they said, oh, because you like hiking so much, I think a healer would be a really good fit for you.
I know this is not a visual medium, so people can't see, but I just hid. I just hid under my desk.
And yeah, me being less than informed, I was like, oh, I trust you, rescue organization. Okay, sure, I'll get a healer.
I just face palmed.
And they're like, okay, actually, there's this dog that we haven't done any intake for, but it's an owner surrender. And I can get it on this transport van in a couple of weeks to drive up from Texas with all these dogs. Okay. Sounds good.
Great.
Yeah. And then right before this dog's about to get on the van, like I shouldn't say right before, but a little bit before they're like, "Oh, by the way, he has heartworm. Do you still want him?" And I'm like, "I've already named this dog. I've already gotten all the things
Yeah.
for him." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay." So for those of you that are unsure about what heartworm is and why it's a problem, the main challenge is that it can cause a dog to die because their heart will stop. And so things like elevated stress levels, but in particular, strenuous exercise are not allowed
Yeah.
while they're going through heartworm treatment.
Yeah, they have to be on complete crate rest because when they're in treatment, the worms that are the actual parasites through the medication are being broken down into smaller pieces. And the danger, and then they're actually processing it out through their bloodstream. And so the danger is that if their heart rate gets elevated, the little pieces of this heartworm, instead of being processed out through their bloodstream, can go to the heart and go to the lungs and really cause some serious damage and actually death in some cases. So pretty strict crate rest is normally mandatory for about 6 weeks during and following treatment.
Except for the fact that you have this during that initial phase, but there are various kinds of treatments. So there are certain kinds of treatment
Right.
where you have this testing every 6 months. And
Mhm.
Frodo was on this regime where he had gotten the initial treatment, he had gone through this process, but then for the next year, he's not on crate rest, but he's limited in the exercise because we're waiting for the all clear
Right.
test. So the
An
challenge with
elevated heart rate can be from stress, or that can also
Mhm.
just be from exercise. Like either of those things are considered not good.
Nope. And then he comes and we find out what? He's reactive.
Woo! Which means elevated heart rate all the time.
Yeah. So he's reactive and I'm not supposed to exercise him a ton. And he's a herding breed. So this is all a very fun situation.
Yeah.
And I find out, and I didn't know this at the time, but he has canine OCD, canine compulsive disorder, where he obsessively chases tails and barks and chases shadows.
So I'm going to interrupt you and ask maybe like a seeking question here, but what was that like? What was that moment like of when you're looking at this dog, you're looking at the situation, you're looking at your life? A month ago, you thought it was going to look so different. And now here you are, and then layered into this is a creature who is sick and who needs care. What was that moment? What feeling were you just like so overstimulated and stressed? Were you feeling overwhelmed? Were you feeling hopeless? What was that like?
It was this kind of gradual buildup because at the time now, and as I'm explaining it now, it's very this and this is what this is. The problem was back then I did not know what this was. I didn't fully understand what reactivity was. I didn't understand that canine compulsive disorder was a thing. So at the time, I'm just walking around confused. What's going on? What's wrong with me? Why is this dog like this? And at this time, I start talking to trainers and vets, and I'm like, what is up with this dog? So I get him
Yeah.
in June and we're going through this process. I'm not quite getting kicked out of my basement suite, but we're getting there because the people stepping on our ceiling causes him to bark. People coming down the pathway down the side of the house, again, causes him to bark. I thought I was going to be able to take him to the office. Stranger danger does not like it when, clients come into the office, which is obviously a problem. So now I'm in this position where I'm like, do I put him in doggy daycare? What do? I do that. I'm like, he's not super comfortable with it. Didn't know at the time that the daycare I picked may not have been the best choice for him, period. So then we're at this point where we're like half living with my parents and half living in Whistler. My parents live in Surrey. So for those of you who don't know, I'm like driving an hour and a half each way commuting when that
Oh my
happens. And the
gosh.
Sea to Sky Highway, which those who are from here, it's not the greatest condition. And actually, earlier in the month before, no, during this period, I totaled my car. So thankfully, Frodo wasn't in the car with me, but it was when I was driving back and forth. He was at my parents' house. I was driving from my parents' house to work, exhausted, and I flipped 3 times on the highway, end up upside down. This car's totaled. Thankfully, I had kayak roof racks on the top of my car. That's what
Yeah.
saved me. My window
Wow.
was blown out. I undid the seatbelt and crawled off. People were like, you should be dead. There was not a scratch on me. I think I got a bit of whiplash. They insisted I went to the hospital. I went. I was
Uh-huh.
fine. I was like sore for a couple weeks, but that was it. I have some like health issues dealing with now. But this is all to say, so it had a very direct impact on my life because I was trying
Yeah.
to do all the things and I tried to muscle through. And that was very much so okay, I'm too tired. I can't be doing this. This isn't sustainable. Now my dog is living with my parents. And why that was the case is because my parents own their own house. Right. So I'm like, okay. And I through all this, I'm like debating, do I go back to school and finish my degree? I could have done that from Whistler and commuted down. And I'm like, you know what? Giving up on adventure tourism for now. I'm quitting my job in Whistler. I'm moving back to Surrey to live with my parents in their house with my dog. And we're going to finish the school year. So within those months of June to beginning of September, so that was only 3 months, got Frodo, moved back in with my parents. And during this time, I started the process of working with different vets and dog trainers and continued with this process through the whole school year as I was going up and finishing my degree. So I spent thousands upon thousands of dollars, got into credit card debt to pay for some of these things. And my
And
dad,
literally uprooted your life.
yes, yes. And the frustrating bit for me was looking back and knowing what I know now, the vets and trainers were helpful, but they didn't fully understand what was going on either. I only found out posthumously, as in like after death, that Frodo had canine compulsive disorder because I was going through the process of becoming a canine behavior consultant myself. And it was in one of the modules that I was working through one of the seminars. So this is also just something not very common in the industry. So I feel like a lot of dog parents are struggling out there because maybe the vet doesn't fully know what's going on, or if a trainer hasn't had a case like this before, they might not know what's going on either.
Yeah.
And yeah, this led me to the process of I needed to become a dog trainer to help my own dog. So
Yep.
I started paying all of these professionals and going to all of these classes with him. And then I went through the process of, oh, maybe I need to become a dog trainer. Or maybe this is what I want to do with my life. And then I started that whole process. And that really informs the work I do right now because what I want to be is the resource I wish I had. So
Yeah.
someone to have told me that, hey, actually, herding breed, not a good choice for you.
Yeah.
Actually, let's vet this rescue. When your dog has heartworm, this is a process for how to deal with it. All of these kinds of realizations would have been really helpful.
Yeah. This was lesson after lesson for you, very much kind of being thrown into the fire. And I really believe that we learn these things in order to help others, in order to be able to turn around and help someone who we see as like a former version of ourselves. And so as much as this experience is not something that I would wish on you or anyone, I know that you wouldn't trade it because this experience that you have is something that is going to help people not end up in that situation, not have to uproot their life, not have to spend thousands of dollars and see not the progress you wanted to see, not to live a whole dog's life without answers, only to have answers, at the end. And a lot of us are pulled into this world to try and create what wasn't there for us. And that's, I think, such a good place to come from because you have the specific experience to help these people, to help lots of people out there with their dogs. And you have this desire to make a positive change based off of what you went through. And I just think I want more trainers like that in the world.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And I think the biggest takeaways that I really got from the whole experience is the importance of, as much as I loved Frodo and he shaped who I am as a trainer and as a person, he had a profound impact on my life. We weren't compatible. If
Right.
I were to have chosen somebody for him, I don't think I was the right person. I had great intentions and I put in the
You
work as much as
became
I
who he needed, but you weren't on the front
at the
end.
beginning. If I had him now, he would have had a way better life. And that is probably my biggest regret when it comes to him. And on the flip side, he probably wouldn't have been the dog I would choose for myself. I don't regret getting him, but if another me came to me and was like, "Hey, this is my situation," and it was my situation a few years ago, I would say, "Hey, actually maybe this dog breed would be a better pick for you." And so I think relationship is at the center of everything when it comes to
Yep.
people and their dogs. Compatibility plays a huge part of that because your lifestyle plays a huge part of that, right? And those things
Yeah.
all go together. And that's why it really informed my training after working with a lot of clients. It's not sufficient for me to tell people, hey, this is how you get your dog to do X, Y, and Z, because a lot of times what happens is the client needs a little bit of coaching, not just on the
Mhm.
handling skills, but hey, here's how we can make some tweaks to your life so you're not as stressed as you are
Yeah.
now. because a lot of people come to dog training and they're already burnt out. They're already overwhelmed. And some of that has to do with their dog specific things. And some of that's they haven't been to the gym in 6 months because they don't have time because of their dog. And so they're not in a position to show up for their dog fully because of how the lifestyle works out. So I think a more holistic view is really helpful for a lot of people.
I could not agree with that more. So is there anything else you would like the listeners out there to know about you and what you do and what's going on in the world of the Canine Detective?
Yeah, I have somewhat recently made a transition where I'm really rebranding myself or showing up fully into the position of I'm a dog trainer and I'm a canine life coach, which is a new term, but somewhat intuitive if you know what a life coach is. I want to help people design their dog's life and their life and how to make that fit together, because a lot of burnout and stress from dog owners, from dog trainers, all that jazz is because we're so busy with our lives that it's A, hard to fit the training in, and B, hard to find the time to do the things that we're wanting with our dogs. And it increases a
And
lot
that
of
matters too.
Yes.
That matters too. Like having fun with your dog matters alongside training, 1,000%.
Because you didn't necessarily, unless you're the professionals that are doing all of the sporty things with your dog, you didn't necessarily get your dog to train your dog. You got your dog so you could go hike in the woods with them or take them to the family picnic or what have you. So I want to really help people get to where they want to be with their dog and that they can enjoy their life. Because as much as I loved Frodo, that period of time was not a super enjoyable time in my life.
I would almost encourage anyone that's listening to ask yourself, why did I get my dog? What do I want to do with them? And if you're not able to do those things, and if you're not living the life that you want with your dog, reach out to Kirsten because she will help you figure out how to bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be. It's that simple. This is what we do.
Thank you. I really appreciate your kind words.
You can connect with Kirsten on Instagram at the Canine Detective, and you can find more information and a link to her work in the show notes. Thanks for joining us in the world of Dog Training Bytes, where every challenge brings a lesson worth sinking our teeth into. See you next time. Dog Training Bytes was created, produced, and edited by Madison Simpson. You can connect with me on Instagram at Dog Training Bytes, that's BYTES, and at Freed by Training. For information on today's guest and resources for help with your dog or dog training education, visit www.dogtrainingbytes.stream. Looking for more? Listen to my other show, Unpacked, a clinical dog training podcast co-hosted by Sailor Jerry the dog trainer and produced by Straight Up Dog Talk, LLC.